Bam. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't count. Hello, Ashley.
Howdy.
Hello, Lily. Hello, Hannah and Indah. Yay. Hello, Tom and Joe. Another moment or so, but this might be it. In which case, it's just going to be a hangout.
Oh my god, Tom Sai.
Oh, I just invited one other person. We're growing. Oh. I still have the Dear Julia picture. I love it. All right. Well, let's just start. I'm just like
Sorry. I'm okay actually. Yeah. I know I don't look okay, but I'm okay.
Wrote that code.
What?
Sorry, I'm being performative, but
Are people being performative on Zoom?
I think he does not know that he's unmuted.
Okay. I'm gonna do the master mute, which I'm normally not able to do. But I am audible. I haven't done a Zoom call in a while. The pandemic is over. Okay, let's get started. Hello, thank you for joining us and watching. And I'm Jonathan. I said everything I need to say in the video. I would love to do just an intro for everyone who's here. Like if you're logged in as a participant viewer, if you want to keep your video off or on, whatever, but it would be lovely to hear your voice. Do a little intro, name, where you're tuning in from, and then I have some questions, and then, but it'll probably veer off from the path. And let's start with, I am tuning in from the West Village. Ashley.
Howdy. I'm Ashley. I'm tuning in from Jersey City.
Choose who goes next. I do this with my kids.
Hannah, I choose you.
Hi, I'm tuning in from my parents' house in Little Falls, New Jersey. Indah.
Hey, tuning in from the Upper West Side. Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm tuning in from the yoga studio. We're at work in Jersey City. Tom.
Tom. He's frozen in time, dancing in that pose, unable to speak. Maybe we'll move on to... You don't have to turn on your camera, but you can say hi. Oh, you just said hi. That was your... Oh, I see. You're in LA. Hi. Can you type in the chat who should go next? Or I'll just choose. Joseph!
hi. I'm tuning in from the Upper West Side.
Lovely.
In my living room.
Oh, Indah, are you in your living room? Oh my god, Upper West Side living rooms. Who should go next? I choose... Oh, yeah. Dave, go.
Hi. We're tuning in from Harlem, New York. I'm not sure if you can hear us. I can't quite turn my camera on, but
We can hear you.
that's great.
Summon the next introduction.
Oh right. We have who haven't Lillian.
I think Lily went already.
Yes, we went, but do we have anybody else?
I'll choose Iman.
Iman?
Iman! We want to say hi to you. There you are, yay!
Sorry, my computer froze right when you called me. What's going on? I just got on, like 30 seconds ago, so I don't know what the problem is.
We're just saying hello and where we're tuning in from.
Oh, I'm Iman, and I'm tuning in from Somerville, Massachusetts.
Wonderful.
Right
Iman is one of the other curators in this fellowship and put on an epic festival online in March. Was it? The Essence of Embodiment Festival. It was films and workshops and panel discussions, and my brain is still spinning from it. But lovely. And then Anne, say hello. Our lovely gallery helper outer.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm tuning in from Cranford, New Jersey.
Lovely. All right, thank you all for doing that. So I wanted to begin with kind of a general check-in with all the choreographers, since like thinking about the main thrust of this project, it's kind of rooted in this very common process over product idea, right? But like taking that further into using the same process to create a new version of the same piece, or maybe it's a different piece. So I'm just curious to go round robin with all the choreographers to just sort of get a little snapshot of what you would consider your process to be, and if through this process you've learned anything new about it or have added any new tools to your toolbox. And that can take the form of whatever you wish. Why don't we go in program order? Hannah.
Okay. Sorry, I froze for a little bit in the beginning, but I think I got the gist of the question of just like the process and then my toolbox now. So the gist of the process, I mean, I know from my own like work making, a large part of my process is time and having a lot of time. And this was not something that was available or like a resource to us in this specific scenario, which I loved and hated in a lot of ways. I think it brought a lot of, it just like brought me to working in a new way, especially working with two people and two bodies I had never spent time with before, getting in the rehearsal studio together. So yeah, toolbox now, I think we used a lot of improvisation based on the script of the original piece, which was a solo and was very much about experiencing a duet as a solo, and then having the opportunity to create a duet in that way. We took a lot of the source material and played a lot of games with it, did a lot of experimenting, and that experimenting continued through the filming process. And I think a tool that I have now is just kind of seeing how that improvisation solidifies in ways through film that doesn't always happen in live performance, because there is so much flexibility and opportunity there, and there's a really different kind of opportunity in creating film.
Yeah, I my brain has, every time I see your pair, I'm always like, is this a sequel? Is this a prequel? Is it a sequel, prequel? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, it almost feels like or an alternate universe in a way too. That like to see it go from the lack of the partner to the partner is, and in a way like the original had that interview component, right? That you're sort of speaking to very like a chorus line, like talking to the person out in the house, and then Ashley and Lily kind of had more of this backyard talent show. We're just showing up and flash mobbing for you with no preparation at all. Yeah. There was another thought I had. Every time I watch it, something new comes up, but I am instead gonna let Ashley and Lily talk about their process.
Okay, Lily, do you want to go first or should I? So I don't cut you off.
We can try to
Okay.
at the same time, but I think, yeah, because process-wise, we have always, or in making work together, we've always had another person to like bounce ideas off of. And in like making and performing work together, we're both fairly different in terms of what our bodies like to do and in terms of kind of what we tend to make. And a lot of kind of what we've found interesting in the past is trying on the other person's movement and being like, oh, this looks like this now. So it was interesting to have someone else there who moves very differently from the both of us to see kind of what emotions come up and what kind of our movements look like on Hannah's body. And then also with filming, I feel like we look at a lot of exhaustion in our pieces and in like what it takes for people to give up on stage. And I feel like for that to translate in like a proscenium theater, you have to go really hard and you have to make it like very obvious and kind of theatrical. And you don't have to do that in film so much because you can get so close and so intimate with the performer. And so I think it was a lot of realizing that we can use like subtlety, we can calm down for a second and still kind of explore those same themes.
Yeah, and like because Jonathan, I think you and I were talking about this when we were walking to Hannah's filming, kind of like how you choose to arrive at certain states in performance and whether you accomplish that state, whether it's like, you know, exhaustion or elation, like whether you do that by like, you know, implementing like a physical change, like exhausting the body in like a physical sense, or how there are other kind of routes like in more of like a theatrical, more of an emotional vein. So it was fun to kind of like what Lily was saying, experiment with more than just like that physical way of accomplishing, you know, exhaustion, and this kind of giving up in the film. And the other thing that I thought of, Lily, was kind of the importance of improvisation and like being able to like riff off of each other, both like in process and in performance. Yeah, and especially with our process, the first time we were in the hallway at Abrams was on filming day. So a lot of the movement that was like, you know, set loosely, it was always going to change. And that was something that it was fun, kind of a little like process within the process, just putting everything in the space.
Right. I was thinking a lot just about how many similarities between these repertory choices were present, given like the use of text and like how similar kind of the coaching in the original is to that narrating idea. and how the narrating in the original better in some ways kind of, as you said in the video, Hannah, became more process oriented as opposed to physical, and how for you guys it became Hannah's internal monologue in a way, this taking away the text, finding that motivation to be one's own, like, go on, like, person. Uh, yeah, I feel that's the when I was watching, I was like, how do you put your own self through that when you don't have the extra, other than the choreographer told me to, but that's a given. I also should acknowledge just for a second, my brain is in a million places at once, that Sienna is obviously not here. I'm very sad about that, but I want to acknowledge her wonderful work on this project too, as I take it over to Indah.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot about my process through this process, which is that I really need to like be in a space with people. And there was so much planning. Like we've been planning this since, I mean, you've been planning it for even longer, but I feel like we first talked about it in October. Um, and like it, all that time, like I still like couldn't make any decisions or plans until I was in the space with Sienna, and which was like 2 weeks ago. So so this, what Hannah was saying about time, like, and the other thing like that Sienna and I really practiced was bringing all of ourselves into the process. So whatever was going on in our personal lives was like very much part of our discussion, conversation, and improvisations. And it was really important to both of us to honor where we were at on any given day. And so for the first week, we focused on Sienna's project, and that went beautifully. And then the second week, we focused on mine, but Sienna got sick. And so we actually had to cancel like 3 out of 4 of our rehearsal dates, and the fourth day was like the filming day. So it was like with no rehearsals, we were gonna like go in and try and film this thing. And so there's, yeah, so talk about like no time. But we adjusted, and and she and I had, because she kept being like, I feel better, like I'm gonna come, we're gonna do it. And I was like, why? Like that I don't think that serves the work. I think it's better to really honor what's going on and make space for your body to heal. And so that feels like something I want to take with me, as I continue to work. And then also like site specific, I'm like, all right, that's gotta be a thing. Like that's a thing for me, site specific. So I definitely learned a lot. Thanks, Jonathan.
You're welcome. I know the time element of this was just it really, I've been thinking nonstop about the planning versus the doing.
Yeah.
And which is, remains the way of dance, but I'm just amazed at what was able to still happen, with so many scope revisions, like so many. The site specific aspect of in this project, I think, is so vital to the sort of experiment aspect of this, where you see this sort of control and variable, because yours is the only one where the before and after is in the same place. And it's so wonderful to like see kind of like what we were thinking about camera wise, and what Natalia's choreography really ended up being. And how that frames some of the movement that's still there, and then new things that popped up. It's
right.
So lovely. There was another. Oh, I just want to acknowledge too, because I've been having this conversation a lot, which is that making space to say, let's not today. I don't feel well today. And it's one of the many pandemic lessons that I hope we take with us as I wipe my nose. Yeah, I just like, if it's not happening, it's not happening. And not needing to push, I think is, can't say enough how important that is. So I wanted now, I sort of have a individual kind of pointed thing for each one. And I want to start, I'll circle back with Hannah. A moment watching the before and after for you that I'm interested in the after in particular is the ending. Watching more of Emily really kind of fall into this spiral of like accepting her isolation, which we she as she kind of in a space junkie way exhausts herself, right, with all this trying to be two people. I'm curious how that, because we have that similar that crawling, that arm dangling and coming to the floor. How were you guys feeling that? And obviously, Ashley, Lily, chime in too. With two people, with contact, how did that change for you?
Yeah, I think that's that part is funny because I think that's like one of like the two physical parts that I like actually adapted off of the original choreography. There's like a little, like some chunk of Ashley's solo that is the same, but also like adapted. And then the ending is actual trying to like take some of that choreography and adapt it onto two bodies. So sorry, I'm losing a little bit the train of the question here. But that was one of the first things that we did in rehearsal was just, you know, this is a duet, and so much of the duet is about like not actually moving together, or like, you know, the presentation of moving together and figuring that out, and that kind of being the thing as opposed to the like actual choreography of it is the explanation of the choreography of it. And that was a moment that we worked on from the beginning as like two bodies coming together in this time when we haven't been touching for a long time, though, you know, Ashley and Lily have a lot of contact with each other and live together. I hadn't had any chance to choreograph on anyone and was making this up in my living room on a chair and being like, this seems like what it would be like for a different body to like bear my weight sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know, Ashley and Lily, if you have any other thoughts on that, but I think, and this is actually maybe going back to the first question of like toolbox now situation, I think in this like restaging, reimagining version, it was really interesting to just kind of like distill that first version down to some kind of like core element of what it was and translate that into the new version. I think for me, you know, there was like this clear narrative that we were following in, or clear to me, clear to whatever, but in the first version and the second version, but what it distilled to was some kind of like conflict, some kind of you know, not ideal situation that we were moving through, and then like where you end when you make it through that. And I think that they ended in different places from what I could tell. Does that make sense? Cool.
Ashley, Lily, anything to add about the experience of that?
Like the experience of like the ending of the piece?
Yeah, like where you feel you arrived.
I mean, in like a narrative of a piece sense, it felt like we can, you know, because not that our characters necessarily like had a fight, but there was a little bit of like the kind of bristle at the end, and then it kind of the collapsing on each other and laughing and coming back together feels like like coming back together after a fight and realizing like, oh, we're both in this very stupid idea together. And more of like a sense of release and relief out of that. And same thing with like the collapse into the ground.
I love that. It's more redemptive in a way. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and also like even though like, you know, throughout the piece, like, you know, obviously like, you know, we're like together and like trying to like accomplish this thing, it's only until like towards the end when we are kind of like, you know, accepting that it is what it is, and like from like that place of like softness, that's when like things finally start to, you know, they finally start to like mesh in a way. And it's not necessarily the thing that was like, you know, that we set out to like really like show and like perform for you. But it was, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like a resolution. It feels so cheesy, but like a resolution of the wills. Because I feel like even though, you know, our characters had wanted to accomplish very similar things, it was kind of at odds with like the how that was going to all go down until the end. So.
I love hearing you guys talk about that. Bye, Jonathan.
I needed to blow my nose. I am back. So Ashley, Lily, sticking with you, kind of related back to what I had started to muse on earlier. When I was watching your original, the quintet version, I became more and more, I think it's because I took a yoga class in a park and I was overhearing a little league like t-ball practice, not rehearsal, practice. and it was one of these, it's like the reason why I quit sports in a way is like this dad was just like at these kids just trying to fucking work on their hand-eye coordination. And particularly with like Paris, but all of you, how you all interact with each other. I became really interested in like the intention, not in terms of like what was the intention of that, but like the intention that goes into coaching, and how it can feel like beratement, but then also like Paris, when you actually hear what they say, is actually quite encouraging. Like this, like, come on, don't stop, but it's still coming with this kind of violent sounding urgency. So I was just curious, like in your original version, is that improvised? Are people just sort of like finding something to nitpick at? Where's that motivation coming from? And then how perhaps that's living in Hannah, if at all.
Yeah, so the funny thing about most of that section, or probably like the last 3/4 of that piece, is that with the exception of like the more like dancey, even the not so dancey drills, all of the cue calling is improvised, along with like the emotional timbre of the improvisation. So
we all kind of specific character, like we all had a specific coaching persona that we had, but like the timing of the whistles and what commands you would actually give, we tended to do similar ones each time, but they didn't have to be the same.
Yeah, and depending on where you fell in like the order, or where you were like with your coaching persona, there were varying degrees of how impossible you were trying to make the score. Whether you're just trying to like just frazzle people by like, you know, giving like, you know, one after the other, just to like kind of mentally fail and just like have the moment of like, wait, what am I supposed to do? or like, if, someone's like, no, I'm gonna like do all of the things and like have that get to more of like that physical state of exhaustion. And the other thing that's interesting is that I don't think we ever specified that people had to do everything. Like you could always not.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see when that would happen or when it wouldn't. And more often than not, it wouldn't. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of what, I kind of lost my train of thought because it was like, yeah. I don't know. That's one of those things that like, there's a whole other kind of narrative like behind that sort of like emotional environment that we tried to create on stage and like that expectation to deliver despite that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then with how we translated it to Hannah, because like, we could have this kind of tighter frame of like, seeing more of like the psychology of like, after you had failed, like the frustration and how like obsessive practice or just practice in general, there's a fine line between that and when you spiral. Yeah.
Oh, that's so, right. I hadn't considered that. The sort of continuation postlude kind of private experience.
Mm-hmm. And how that sort of like preoccupation with failure and that preoccupation with like perfection is something that it gets sinister more quickly before it doesn't. And how it's not something that's constructive in like a group dynamic, and it's not something that's constructive in like when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a process or if you want to like, blow it up a little bit more macro. Yeah.
Lovely. Hannah, anything to add to that?
I was just gonna say I hadn't seen any of the original footage of Ten Hail Marys either. I learned a lot of the phrase material, the like drills within it, but just from like watching it last night and today, and hearing you two talk about it right now, I was like struck by the motivation of like the individual who was like giving verbal cues throughout the live performance and feeling the translation of that. You said like the emotional environment that you were creating, it felt very like mirrored or parallel in the actual like physical environment where we were shooting. Like that felt like a lot of the motivating factor. And like, yes, I was alone. Yes, I was like journeying through that, but it also felt like there was something motivating in the space as well. And we talked a lot about like an actual like I don't know, like narrative idea of like when you have dreams of being stuck in high school or like you can't get out of like high school. So that was like just something that we read a lot, and that felt I don't know. I think just like the actual environment felt motivating to the emotional journey as well.
We need to get a bunch of lockers. Darn. No, it's great. And I really do feel like the space kind of became that imposing presence for you. That claustrophobia. Oh, I love all this. Indah! I was so struck, only because we worked on this together, when the way it ended, because I remember discovering the idea of just, I think we phrased it in this way, just step off the stairs. Like, why are we doing all of this when you can just go from here to here? And but to add in that I'm not ready, like, and sort of I'm thinking about Kelsey's art primers from last night. My sort of kinesthetic empathy of that moment I was very jarred, because in my remembering of doing it, you just float off of it. And I remember watching it and feeling a jolt of like, what's new here? So I'm just curious where that came from, um, as well as hearing a little bit, just because Sienna's not here, kind of this. I feel like there's a relationship, I don't know what, between the ladder and the stairs. These two stepping things, right? And who they are, what they are. Um, Take it away.
Well, the ending, I mean, it's pretty literal. It was just like that's how I let go of things. It's like I let go, and then I'm like, no, no, I'm just kidding. I want it back, you know. And then it like still doesn't work, so I'll let go again, and you know, so it's a process. Um, and yeah, it just felt like that idea needed a little more time and space. So it felt right. Um, and then, um, you know, it's funny because Sienna was like, "How? What do you think about like if we use a ladder?" And I just started laughing because I was like, "We're making the same dance, like we're making the same thing, ladders and stairs." And so there's definitely a lot of parallels and overlaps there. Um, and I think it really allowed us to show up to each other's work and vision, um, in a very personal way. Like I, it's just nice when like the thing that's being made is so relatable, and um, and so I feel like we both had that for each other. So you know, when she was having me like, there's so much exploration on that ladder that didn't make it into the edit. Um, like I had bruises, you guys, all over my body, like climbing all over that ladder. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun. Um, it is a heavy ladder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the SMUSH Gallery ladder.
yeah, yeah. And we took it to the beach and like did all kinds of stuff on the beach. Um, but I had already done, I mean, Jonathan, you and I did so much exploration on my stairs like that.
And we
And
already had a lot of bruises.
we already had a lot of bruises. And I feel like I had a practice already of like exploring an object in that way.
Yeah.
And Sienna's prompts actually helped me understand what we were doing on the stairs. You know, so she would say things like, you know, caress the ladder, or like be tender, or at one point there was like seduce the ladder, you
Oh.
know, and this whole thing like, okay, you set it up and it's like, um, maybe it represents like a relationship or a person you're in a relationship with, or and there was some, yeah, like humanizing the ladder, which was really um, interesting, fascinating. And she was improvising at one point, and I was like, "What if the ladder is seducing you? Like, what does that do to you?" And she did this, she did this amazing improvisation with that. But I think that's another reason why I felt safe and comfortable to take the time when she got sick, because there was so much overlap in the work. Like we had already done so much together in that process that I felt like, you know, once we get in the space, it's just like it's all there already, you know. And um, so I feel like we got so lucky in like how like all those synchronicities between us, and
Yeah.
it was so much fun
It was-
working with Sienna, and I want to keep doing it.
Yay! Yay! Yes. It goes on.
It goes on.
Oh, you said something that it left me, but beautiful. Thank you. That was amazing. I want to open it up with no pressure or expectation to any audience response, questions, observations, anything you're curious about. Um, No pressure. If there is radio silence, I'll move on. I'm just happy you're here. Anything? Doesn't gotta be so. I think. Do I have one more thing? Oh, well, interrupt me if you have a burning question, but in terms of that it goes on idea, we're in such a weird time. Um, things are coming back, but there's still a lot of stepping on and off the stairs about it. And oh, Tom, really enjoyed the concept of this show. I've personally been fascinated with how works can build a relationship with different versions of itself depending on changing context, environment. Cass, oh my god, we have the same ideas. Artistic identities do the same. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. I'm copying and pasting that for the grant application. Yes, I appreciate that. Yes, you are the best. So in within this ambiguous space, I'm just curious what you have on the horizon. Whether or not there is a horizon. What's next for y'all?
I already told you.
Tell the world.
We're gonna make a stair duet with Jonathan and Sienna, but it's just gonna be their legs because they have the same legs. But we need a new staircase because I'm moving out of this apartment. So if anyone knows of any staircases, we are open for applications. Staircases.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Hannah?
I don't know. I think a lot of what this COVID time, whatever, has like made it feel like making plans for the future is really hard, or just like there's a lot more flexibility and like need for flexibility in what happens, and like we're all like, it's really hard, but like we're also okay with that. So I think just like my future is like trying to just be like okay with things shifting. I think right now I'm really focusing on my teaching practice, which is exciting and something that I love, and I just started teaching at Gibney, which is amazing and something I wanted to do for a really long time, and I love it. And yeah, I think just getting back in the studio with the dancers that I work with a lot. We just started last week, and just trying a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm in a very similar spot. Holly, who edited this entire shebang, we have a duo together called Break Time, and the day of the shutdown, we were supposed to open a split bill show with a brand new piece we were really fucking excited about. We were planning to do our first ensemble work, became very irrelevant by everything that has happened since, gave up on that. And then we were asked to do some things, and now we're spit. And then Holly did a solo residency. I did this, but with Holly. And now we're sort of spit out the other end, and in that same kind of place of like, let's just play. No deadline, no like expectation. I think it's like part of the healing, but also not just like I'm gonna do that until I'm healed, and like keep on making space for that. Yeah, I love it. Ashley, Lily.
Yeah, it's kind of slight tangent, but something that like just hit me was that the piece that we ended up reconceptualizing was the last like performance that we did like a couple weeks before the world shut down. So it just kind of seemed a little auspicious to kind of go into 2020 with that, and then come out 2021, sort of, mulling over the same, some, similar things in a different way. So I know we're going to revisit some older works that we made many years ago when I just moved to Jersey, and Lily, when you were back and forth for work, and we were just both like, we just need to start something, which I feel like is very much kind of in the same vein.
Place.
Yeah, same place that we're kind of existing in now. It's but yeah, no expectations, having kind of a framework to go off of, and just get weird and see where it goes.
I love it.
Oh yeah.
It's a motto if I ever heard one. What I'm so excited for all of this and all of us and all of you. I just want to send a big ol' thank you, love you, because this has been very moving to see just come together, and that's it. Onward. So thank you, Iman and Tom, Dave, and Joe, wherever you are, for tuning in on this. Any final thoughts? If not, we'll say goodbye, but not forever. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi.
Hello, Julia.
Hi.